Good morning and welcome to the Daily Light Devotion. I hope you've had a wonderful Monday and looking forward to today. That is 24th of June. We're going to look at verses 9 to 16 in chapter 7, continue in chapter 7, like I said yesterday. Um, and we are going to look at how God is faithful despite man's rejection. Now, Stephen was continuing his talk, right? He speaks boldly before the Sanhedrin, which is like the parliament of that time of Jewish counselors. And like I said yesterday, he was recounting the history of Israel. And verses 9 to 16, actually, we're going to look at now. Today highlights the life of Joseph. I said yesterday we looked at Joseph. We did actually. Today we are looking at Joseph, and tomorrow we'll look at Moses. Right? Rejected by his own brothers, sold into slavery, yet powerfully used by God. And Stephen's purpose is clear to show how God chooses his messenger are often misunderstood by someone opposing it, right? But God's plan always prevails. And the passages that remind us that rejection doesn't cancel God's plan, purpose, or plan for our lives. It often positions us correctly. So verses 9 to 10 says, and the patriarchs became envious, sold Joseph into Egypt. But God was with him and delivered him out of all his troubles. Joseph, we know that was betrayed by his family, by his brothers. And, there was a little bit fault of Joseph, but he did not do anything sinful, or there was no wrongdoing that was hurtful, that was going to hurt anybody. But he was just talking about what God's purpose was. Um, so basically, he was rejected by his brothers. But that rejection did not remove God's hand over Joseph's life. In fact, God was with Joseph, and the Bible says in Genesis 37 2, I think so it says, God was with Joseph, and he was sold in slavery. He was naked, right? And people were putting a price on him. It says God was with Joseph, and Joseph was a prosperous man. So Potiphar saw that in, unbeliever Potiphar saw that about Joseph. God was with Joseph and he was prosperous. And that's why he bought him. And he brought him to his house. So for us to be prosperous is not how much wealth we have, but do people see God in us? Do we know that we are prosperous because of God, like Joseph? That's a great learning for each one of us. Anyways, let's move ahead. So God delivered. Deliverance doesn't always mean escape, right? Through Joseph's life, it means purpose in the plan. And verses 10 says, favor is in unlikely places. So, and gave him favor and wisdom in the presence of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. So God gave Joseph wisdom and favor in a foreign land, right? Uh, what God did was promote him. It was not limited by geography, background, or people's opinions. Um, very system that enslaved him became a platform for his influence. So that's what happens when God's hand is upon us. And Joseph is one of my favorite characters because of his close relationship with God and how he responds to all the wrongdoings that were happening to him by his brothers, by you know by Potiphar and his wife, by the king's servants, right, in jail, but still he had an amazing attitude. And then because he was so close to God, he did not take offense. And that's why I really love the character of Joseph. He could have really harmed every one of them, even Potiphar when he became the prime minister, but he did not. Right? He showed God's mercy and character, um, like Jesus does. Right? And it was just a representative that, how Jesus is going to be perfect and forgiving and loving. And so I just really, it encourages me. And whenever I read about the story of Joseph, it really shows how, you can go through the worst of worst times, but Jesus is with you. God is with you. You're going to be a success. Right now, verses 11 13 says God uses the rejected to bring salvation. It says, now famine came over all of Egypt and Canaan. Jacob heard there was grain. Joseph was made known to his brothers. The famine actually brought Joseph's brothers to Egypt, uh, and need who needed to who needed to humble themselves. And Joseph, once rejected, became the one who preserved life, means helped them because there was no food. Uh, and God turned betrayal into a bridge of reconciliation and restoration for Joseph and his family. So, this is something we can learn about our lives also, right? Verses 14 and 16, restoration, fulfillment of God's plan. So, it says, then Joseph sent and called his father Jacob and all the relatives to him, 75 people. God used Joseph to preserve the covenant of the family, right? Securing all the line of promises. That's what God had promised to Abraham, right? Continued with Isaac and with Jacob and with all the 12 brothers, right? Which were later known as the the tribes of Israel. When they started in rejection, ended in restoration and reunion. And that's how God works. If just because of Joseph's faithfulness, just because of Joseph's relationship, right? God's covenant promise moved forward because of his faithfulness. Though, though like, Jesus' lineage was not from him, but God used him because he was submitted 100%. He was obedient. His whole life, was dependent on his relationship with God. So, what can we learn? You know, even in seasons of rejection, right? God is with us and we are a success. Our identity doesn't change. Like Joseph, we may feel misunderstood, pushed aside, but God is still with us. God's people is, there is no harm can come if we focus on Jesus and build our relationship with Him. Uh, we do not, Joseph's life took a long time. A lot of things took a long time. There was a lot of delay. So, but Joseph waited for years before his purpose was unfolded. And godly faith trusts the delay is not denial. Remember that. Um, and, you know, another thing we need to apply in our lives is we need to let God use us wherever we are. Joseph didn't wait to get out of Egypt to serve. He served right where he was placed. And we honor God in the current season or location He has placed us? Very important for us. Reconciliation is a part of the redemption. So Joseph forgave his brothers, and they're the places in our life where God is calling us to move forward and not take offense, and uh, where healing and restoration can take place. So I want to encourage you, even when others reject us, right? God's favor is not removed. He sees us, he sees the end from the beginning, like in Joseph's life. And pain may be preparation for uh, someone else's deliverance. See, pain is only there when we're self centered and we're focused on ourselves. When we realize that God has delivered us, God is with us, and He's bigger, the pain becomes less. Our focus is not the pain, the focus is Jesus Christ. And keep trusting God, who is always with us. When we do that, it's easier to overcome the pain. So God bless you. I hope this encourages you. It encourages me teaching and looking at it. God bless you. Have a wonderful Tuesday. I'll see you tomorrow.